Born into slavery and sold as infants, Millie and Christine McCoy were conjoined twins who had all odds against them. They faced unimaginable exploitation and were even kidnapped for many years, touring the world as a spectacle. So what happened to them? Would they find their freedom, or would they be viewed as freaks for as long as they lived? Millie and Christine McCoy were born on July 11th, 1851 on a plantation near Whiteville, North Carolina. They were born into slavery as their parents, Jacob and Monimia McCoy, were enslaved by Alexander Mackay, from whom the family took their surname. At this time, freedom was still more than a decade and a brutal civil war away. At birth, they reportedly weighed a combined 17 pounds and shocked everyone present. Well, Millie and Christine were conjoined twins, connected at the lower back and spine by cartilage. This meant they shared some vital body parts, but not others. The twins were born into a large family, as their parents already had 7 other children, 5 boys and 2 girls. Unlike Millie and Christine, none of their siblings had any unusual physical characteristics. Their unique condition, combined with the hardships of being born into slavery, marked the beginning of an extraordinary and challenging journey for the McCoy twins. Millie and Christine's early life was chaotic and tragic. As soon as they were born, news spread around the region about the birth of these unusual sisters who had a medical anomaly. In the 19th century, many people were unfamiliar with the concept of conjoined twins, and so people began showing up at the Mackay farm to catch a glimpse of them. Eventually, Alexander Mackay grew irritated by this disruption to his daily life, so when they were just 10 months old, he sold them to John C. Purvis on the condition that their mother, Monimia, be allowed to stay with them. But this arrangement didn't last long. About a year later, the twins were sold again, this time to a man named Brower. Brower, with the financial backing from Joseph P. Smith, paid the staggering sum of $10,000 for the twins, equivalent to around $400,000 today. With profit in mind, Brower began exhibiting the infant girls as a medical marvel under the name the Carolina Twins, traveling across the southern states including Louisiana, Texas, and North Carolina. In October 1853, Millie and Christine made headlines at North Carolina's first official state fair, which drew daily crowds of around 5,000 people. The girls were an instant success, but some doubted their condition, thinking it was a put-on. Thus, while in New Orleans for another show, Brower had local doctors examine them and confirm that they were in fact authentic conjoined twins. Life on display was grueling. The girls were often separated from their mother, and although they couldn't understand it at the time, were subject to public ridicule. Also, as conjoined toddlers, they were uncoordinated and clumsy, finding it difficult to walk, often falling over as a result. In time though, they developed a distinctive sideway walk, which eventually turned into a charming dance that delighted audiences. It became a rare moment of joy in lives otherwise marked by hardship and exploitation. Speaking of finding small joys in challenging times, let's take a quick moment to talk about today's sponsor, Hay Day. I've been playing Hay Day a lot recently, and I absolutely love it. Hay Day is a free-to-download game where you grow crops, care for your animals, sell your produce, and build your perfect farm from the ground up and much more. It has such a fun and relaxing feeling to it, and you can play at your own speed. One of my favourite parts of Hay Day is collecting a big harvest, but as you might be able to tell by looking at my farm, I also love decorating and making sure everything looks on point. Let me know what you guys think of it down below in the comments. Speaking of decorating, Hay Day is gifting my subscribers a 16-item reward pack so you can kickstart your farm. My personal favourites are the toy soldier, the picnic mat, and the harp. Not to boast, but I think they look pretty cool. Make sure to download Hay Day by using my link or QR code to claim your pack worth $15.99. But be quick, as it's only available until the 15th of February. Once you've downloaded the game, click the link again to claim your reward. It's that simple. Now, let's get back to Millie and Christine, whose lives are about to take an unsettling and shocking turn. While touring in New Orleans, Brower received an irresistible offer: $45,000 for the twins, a fortune far beyond what had been originally paid. To put this into perspective, that's over $1.8 million today. Of course, he eagerly accepted, but the deal was too good to be true. Brower had been swindled, and Millie and Christine were gone, stolen away by the supposed buyer. The twins vanished from public view until 1854, when they reappeared at a museum in Philadelphia. During this time, bitter disputes raged over their ownership. Brower, Joseph P. Smith, and even Alexander Mackay, who seemed to regret selling the twins for a comparatively meagre sum, laid claim to them. Meanwhile, their mother, Monemia, fought to have her daughters returned to her care in some form. The scam left Brower broke and out of the picture. Smith emerged as the twins' legal owner, and spared no expense in recovering them. He hired a private investigator to track Millie and Christine. Meanwhile, their kidnappers had moved north, placing the twins on display at P.T. Barnum's famed American Museum in Manhattan. The twins next appeared in Canada before being taken across the Atlantic to Liverpool, England. By this point, Millie and Christine had spent the vast majority of their young lives far from their home and family. In 1857, after a grueling 3-year search, the private investigator finally tracked them to England. Their mother, Monemia, and their enslaver Joseph P. Smith travelled to Liverpool to reclaim them. At last, in Birmingham, the twins, now about 5.5 years old, were reunited with their mother. It was a bittersweet moment. Millie and Christine had spent most of their short lives in the hands of the kidnappers, exploited as curiosities for profit. Yet, even after being rescued, their life didn't change all that much. They were promptly put back to work, exhibited once again for the public, for now in the United Kingdom, and later in the States, continuing their lives as a spectacle for others' entertainment. This was how Millie and Christine's life played out as they grew up. One wonders what they must have thought of their situation during these years. Things changed, however, in 1860, when Abraham Lincoln won the US presidential election late that year. Within a few weeks, South Carolina seceded from the Union, quickly followed by a wave of southern states, including Millie and Christine's home state of North Carolina. By the first half of 1861, the nation was plunged into chaos, and the American Civil War had begun. By then, the girls were living in North Carolina again, splitting their time between the household of the Smiths, time spent with their own biological parents, and touring across the southern states. The chaos of the Civil War restricted the twins' movements, but also opened the door for their education. Despite being slaveholders, it's reported that the Smiths treated Millie and Christine fairly well. Joseph's wife even broke the law by teaching the girls to read and write, a bold act at the time. Millie and Christine also learned to speak several languages, and even received professional training in singing, which would later define their careers. Joseph Smith passed away during the war, leaving behind an estate that included over 30 slaves. Despite his death, Millie and Christine remained enslaved under the Smith family. But as the Civil War came to an end, freedom finally arrived. The twins, along with their parents, siblings, and countless others across the South, were liberated as slavery was at last abolished in the United States. With the end of the war and as they entered their teenage years, Millie and Christine were able to tour again, and with a greater degree of autonomy than had previously been the case. This was an era when circuses, or what were then cruelly known as freak shows, were at their height. Showmen like P.T. Barnum managed troops of individuals who often displayed medical anomalies, from giants and dwarves to bearded ladies, people with extra limbs, and much more. In an age before television and radio, curiosity often outweighed sympathy for those with such conditions, and so crowds flocked to circuses and local fairs whenever they came to town. Millie and Christine performed all over the country and were a big hit at these shows. During this time, there was widespread fascination with conjoined twins, often referred to as Siamese twins. This term stemmed from the famous conjoined twins Chang and Mbangka, who were born in Siam, modern-day Thailand. At times, Millie and Christine were displayed without any infringement of modesty to prove they were truly conjoined, satisfying the public's curiosity while maintaining a sense of decorum. As they toured, sometimes associated with Barnum shows, sometimes with other managers, they grew more experienced about managing their affairs, and even seemed to have grown into their position. A memoir was written by them at the end of the 1860s, in which they used the motto, "As God decreed, we agreed," indicating an acceptance of their unusual medical situation, and a determination to make the best of it. Before long they returned to Europe, and like many other popular circus performers at the time, met with Queen Victoria. A highlight of their performance was their duets, where the sisters would sing together or alternate, with Christine taking a verse and Millie the chorus or vice versa. Many of these songs would later be published in a lengthy booklet detailing their life and career. Many descriptions were written of Millie and Christine during these years. The language used in these wouldn't even be contemplated today. One such work entitled A Biographical Sketch of Millie Christine, the Carolina twins surnamed the Two-Headed Nightingale and the Eighth Wonder of the World, refers to the twins as a, quote, creature, and references her elsewhere as a singular girl, as though they were unaware that conjoined twins were two different people. Another unfortunate advertisement of the girls' arrival to Liverpool in 1871 referred to them as cargo arriving on a ship, stating that there had arrived a cargo which, in the words of Mr. Toole, may be termed most extraordinary. The report went on as follows. Here we have a young lady with one body but two distinct minds, born by two separate heads. All the intelligent men who saw her at the Washington Hotel the other day can bear witness to the marvellous intelligence which predominates in both brains. The conversational powers of the two heads at once in communication with two different persons, upon different topics, would sufficiently testify it, but the marvel did not stop here. Some of the sweetest duets in the language of music were sang by a high soprano and a pure contralto. The notes issued from two heads, and yet but one trunk supplied the verve. Others simply engaged in fairly idiotic jokes. The Cincinnati Enquirer kidded that the two-headed girl would be a good juror. She could look at both sides of the case at the same time. These remarks, while mocking, highlighted the incredible fame they achieved. But was their life merely a spectacle for ridicule, or did they turn the notoriety into something extraordinary? Millie and Christine could be viewed as victims of a world which treated them as a freak show, and this was certainly part of their reality. However, at the same time, performers like them who worked for Barnum and other circuses at this time were handsomely rewarded. If they were savvy enough to capitalize on their popularity, they could make a lot of money and retire comfortably. Millie and Christine were able to make an estimated $25,000 per year working on the county fair circuit back in America, while larger shows in the cities or trips to Europe held out the possibility of even greater earnings. This was a huge amount of money in the 1870s, particularly so during an era of financial crisis in the US, the so-called Long Depression of 1873 to 1879. With their earning power and the market deflated, they turned the disadvantage that had characterized their lives on its head and made the best of their situation. In the 1870s, they bought the Mackay plantation where they had been born over 20 years earlier, and gave it to their father. They would acquire the farm themselves after his death, and built a large 14-room house where they lived with their many extended family members. By their 20s, Millie and Christine had earned enough money to partially retire. Like other circus performers of the time, years of successful touring, typically 5 to 10, allowed them to amass enough wealth to live comfortably, often with household staff to assist them. If money started to run low, they could return to do a tour for 1 or 2 seasons, earning a large payday, as pent-up demand to see them was met. Such was the case in 1871 when the twins set off on a tour of Europe, visiting Britain, France, Belgium, the Netherlands, Germany, Italy, Austria, Hungary and Russia. Pay from the shows was often supplemented by gifts from European rulers and aristocrats when they appeared at the royal courts of Europe. Back in America, the duo also agreed to make appearances at several American medical institutions and colleges for physical examination. This could be viewed as exploitative and somewhat cruel. However, it must be remembered that there was a genuine lack of understanding at this time about the phenomenon of conjoined twins, and doctors were anxious to gain a greater understanding of it. Millie and Christine retired fully from the 1880s onwards. They were now in their 30s and lived a quiet life back on the farm they were born on in North Carolina. Studies show that the twins discreetly helped their community, funding a local school for black girls and supporting several colleges in the Carolinas, often making these donations anonymously. They lived a considerably long life for conjoined twins who often suffer from health complications owing to the nature of sharing vital body parts and organs. In Millie and Christine's case, they lived into their early 60s, and when they died, it was not from complications related to their being conjoined, but the result of one of the major killers of the time, tuberculosis. This claimed Millie's life on the 8th of October 1912 at 61 years of age. Christine reportedly died about 12 hours later, in what must have been a very sad ending. They were buried in a cemetery at Whiteville, where they were born over 60 years earlier. Their gravestone bears the words, "A soul with two thoughts, two hearts that beat as one." The twins left their considerable estate to their surviving family members. Millie and Christine's story has been the subject of several biographies in recent times, reclaiming their previously forgotten story. Thank you so much everyone for watching this video, and thanks again to Heyday for sponsoring it. It is a really good game and I'll be playing it after I finish making this video. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video on Millie and Christine, the conjoined twins. I hope you found it interesting. Let me know what you thought of their lives down below in the comments, and if you want more videos like this, also let me know down below in the comments. I hope you guys are subscribed and have notifications turned on to get all my videos as soon as I upload them. Anyway, that's all from me, so I'll see all of you in the next Forgotten Life. Thanks.